Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Milwaukee Bucks desperately needed a win on Tuesday so they could keep the rest of the Eastern Conference playoff hopefuls at arm's length. Also, should the Cardinals go for the generational talent at wide receiver or trade for a king's ransom? And why J.J. McCarthy just isn't the quarterback you trade up for. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Milwaukee Bucks have been down so terribly bad. A 4-game home losing streak against some of the worst teams in the NBA. And they come out a house of fire against the Boston Celtics. Everything is good. They're so back. The Bucks are so back until the third quarter when Giannis goes down with a non-contact injury. We find out it is a soleus strain. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. That is a word I've never heard before. I'm not even sure I have one of those. Maybe it's just one of those things Giannis Antetokounmpo has, no one else has. Frank Madden from Locked On Bucks joins me now. And Frank, for 2.5 quarters, this was going to be a joyous moment for the Bucks. They look like the team they needed to be heading into the postseason, and now Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, the story of the past few months, really of the Doc Rivers era, has been sort of the stop-start nature of their key guys. And it seems like every time they think that they've got Chris Middleton, Dame Lillard, and Giannis all available and ready to play together, you know, last week it was Chris Middleton getting his face rearranged, losing teeth after, you know, a very good start for the Bucks in the first half against the Knicks. Chris goes out and they get walked all over in the second half against the Knicks. But it's been just this kind of season for the Bucks. And you know, Giannis obviously historically has been a very durable player. He's really missed, you know, very few games this year, but he's been on the injury report basically every game for the last 3 months with varying injuries. You know, whether it was Achilles soreness, whether it was this hamstring tendinopathy that he's had really over the past few weeks, and, you know, knee soreness, like kind of like just the gamut basically. And unfortunately, with the Bucks struggling to hang on to a 2 seed that seemingly no one in the East wants, you know, would he have sat out some games here lately if the Bucks had been taking care of business and had a bit more of a comfortable position in terms of the playoff seeding? Possible. Who knows? It's just, you know, we're just all kind of in wait and see mode. And I guess it just sort of figures that this Bucks team, given how they've just been struggling to figure out anything in terms of consistency, that, you know, sure enough, here right before the playoffs, you know, they lose the one guy that they absolutely could not lose.
Yeah, and look, if Giannis can't play in the postseason for whatever reason, if this turns out to be a worse injury than we know right now, they have almost no shot to win the title. Like, it's over. The Celtics are just too good unless the Celtics get really banged up, and then, you know, chaos reigns. Did you take anything though from the first 2.5 quarters? Understanding no Horford, no Kristaps Porzingis. From this Bucks performance, they did get the win. That's crucial for them to stay at least a little separated from the teams chasing them for this 2 seed. Yeah,
I mean, they've got a huge game coming up against Orlando. They got 2 games against Orlando here in this last week. They have them at home first, and that's obviously what's shaping up to be a huge game, not just because Orlando is right on their heels, but again, the Knicks, with their win on Sunday, were able to work back their way back, you know, up to right being on the Bucks' heels as well. So I think, you know, again, like, the response obviously was a positive thing. I think you're always wary of putting too much into games where, you know, a team just shoots the lights out from 3. But I think the encouraging thing for the Bucks was, you know, they shoot 8 for 10 from 3 in the first quarter. You know, they had Pat Bev starting at the 2 guard. First time all year that Malik Beasley has been benched, which, you know, I certainly was among those who were wondering early in the season, like, you know, is Malik Beasley really the guy that you need starting for this team, given you're playing Dame Lillard at point guard? But Beasley, you know, that starting 5 has basically been the most efficient starting 5 in basketball in terms of net rating. Shocking to believe, but again, when they're healthy, that group has been really good. So clearly this was kind of a change up that Doc went with to put Bev in there, trying to get some more defensive metal and energy injected into this team. And I mean, he had his best game of the season by far. Probably was the best player in the game for both teams, which I don't know that we had Pat Beverly tagged to be.
Yeah, had 20 and 10, and the 10 was rebounds.
I think that's probably the most notable thing here. We'll see what happens the rest of the way here, but Pat Bev forcing his way, bullying his way into the starting five seems like potentially a thing. But, I think at halftime, Bucks were 16 of 24 inside the arc. Celtics were 8 of 24 inside the arc. Obviously, it's definitely a game that the Bucks needed way more than the Celtics, given Boston has everything wrapped up and we're missing the two of their kind of two primary bigs. But nevertheless, I mean, if you're the Celtics would have loved to come in here and kick the Bucks when they're down. So again, they didn't really need this game, but if they had blown out the Bucks by 20 tonight, I mean, I don't even know what the discussion would have been like about the Bucks tomorrow.
It would have been both of these seasons are over because the Celtics are going to backwalk, moonwalk, sleepwalk,
dog walk.
to the finals, and the Bucks season was going to get ugly in a hurry. All those things might still be true, by the way, but now
for different reasons.
Yeah. So that makes the close of the season and the Eastern Conference playoff race all the more interesting. Frank, thanks for the time.
Thanks, Peter. Take care.
One more note on this game. The Celtics did not make a free throw in the game. The reason, they didn't even attempt a free throw. First time ever that a team went without attempting a freebie, and first time since the 1963-64 season that two teams combined for just 2 free throws total. This according to the TNT broadcast. Absolutely crazy stuff. It must have been all the threes might have contributed. Stay up to date all year on the Milwaukee Bucks by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bucks on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, is Marvin Harrison Jr. in the hand worth leaving the Hall of Picks in the bush? Before we answer that, the Lakers face the Warriors shorthanded. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for big-time savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. For a limited time, all users can get $20 off any Major League Baseball purchase of $150 or more in the Gametime app with code FIRSTPITCH, all one word. Terms apply. That's code FIRST, PITCH, for $20 off. That's until April 14th only, so you better get a move on. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The shorthanded and desperate Lakers welcome the Golden State Warriors to town.
That was a shooting spectacle. The Golden State Warriors came 1-3 short of tying a franchise record. And this is a storied franchise. This isn't like the Miami Heat or the T-Wolves, someone who's been around 30 years, 20 years. They've been around since the beginning as the Philadelphia Warriors. They come 1-3 shy of tying a franchise record for most threes in a game. They hit 26 tonight. The record was 27, spearheaded by Draymond Green, of all players, who said after the game that he knew they were going to play off him. He took advantage of it, hit his first 5 3-pointers of the game, finished 5 of 7. The Golden State Warriors win 134-120. They now own the tiebreaker over the Lakers. The 8th seed is still in play because the Sacramento Kings are reeling.
The Mavericks took advantage of a golden opportunity to increase their stranglehold on a playoff spot.
Luka Donic starts this game in just a way that only Luka Doncic can, really. I mean, there's not really anybody else in the NBA. I guess Curry can do this. I guess, you look at like a guy that can get real hot. Like, I guess a Donovan Mitchell maybe could do this. there's not like a lot of players where you just go, man, they just went scorched earth, just destroyed you scoring in the first quarter. And Luka, first quarter, 21 points, five threes he hits in that first quarter. And he was just absolutely, I saw you tweet this, a masterclass. It really was just a Luka masterclass tonight.
John Calipari made a goodbye video in which he said it's time for another voice to lead Kentucky.
The last few weeks, we've come to realize that this program probably needs to hear another voice, that the university as a whole has to have another voice giving guidance about this program that they hear. And the fans need to hear another voice. We've loved it here, but we think it's time for us to step away and step away completely from the program.
Maybe a voice that can take them to the Final Four again. I don't know, just spitballing here. On the ice, the Islanders hosted a critical game with their crosstown rivals.
Final score, Islanders 4, Rangers 2, a hard-fought battle at the UBS Arena. And wow, what a game this was for the New York Islanders. This game, I'll say this. The Islanders had their moments. The first period was beautiful. Then they hung on, and yet they were able to do that and hang on and get things done in order to pull out this victory, and it wasn't easy. This game felt like a playoff game. It had the intensity, the rivalry of a playoff game, the dislike of the other team that you see in a playoff game.
Now that we have a better idea of how the top of this draft might shake out, and I emphasize the word might, the Arizona Cardinals, speaking of might, just might be in the power position right now. Trade up for someone like J.J. McCarthy if you're the Minnesota Vikings or the Denver Broncos. Could the Cardinals stick and pick with Marvin Harrison Jr.? Could they move down and then move back up like they did last year? Alex Clancy from Locked On Cardinals joins me now. And Alex, as you look at their options, it seems like they're going to have their pick of the non-quarterbacks at 4 if they want to stay there. And it also looks like it might be the case that they will have their pick of trade down options for people wanting to come up and grab a quarterback. What do you think is the most prudent path forward for the Cardinals?
I don't know. I mean, no, it's funny, Peter, because like the Cardinals very rarely find themselves in a win-win situation. And I feel like that's what this is shaping up to be if the price is right for the move down. And I think the price that needs to be right for the Cardinals is 3 firsts, even if that's an overpay by who trades up, namely Minnesota with 11-23 and a 20-25 1, because not only is there the QB tax for teams moving up, this is also a pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. tax as well. So Monty Osborne is going to need a deal that that's impossible for him to pass up to move back. Otherwise, they'll just stick and pick Marvin Harrison Jr. It's a win-win.
Okay, here's how I look at this, though, Alex. Playing devil's advocate here, is there a receiver right now that you think would garner 3 first-round picks in any circumstance with a trade?
No, but the teams that are trading up are moving up to draft a quarterback, not a wide receiver. So this is something that it's a Monty Ossenfort tactic. It's like, listen, we're good here. Monty says Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the wide receiver for the future for the Cardinals, hopefully past the first contract if they do draft him. You need to wow me. And with the Denver Broncos kind of being outside looking in like this could be another team, if the Vikings want their guy at 4, running unopposed, they're going to need to pony up. They moved up. They got Houston's 23rd overall pick via Cleveland. They got to give up a future first. And, that's the pay to play scenario for 4, I would assume.
So let's say Minnesota's willing to do that. 11, 23, and next year's first round pick. But now you're stuck outside looking in at a top receiver if you want one. What do you think the chances are of them pulling a 2023 and saying, hey, we're going to trade back and then we're going to come back up for our Paris Johnson Jr. this year?
This is my oh goody portion of this conversation, because it's like, if it's not Marvin Harrison Jr., the one thing you can remove is any move with the Giants, because you'd be sitting right next to Marvin Harrison Jr. like, hey, buddy, Sorry, we're going to take the next one. Like, it's so close where you can't warrant trading back if Marvin Harrison Jr. is right that. Now, having said that, I've said a lot of what people think are crazy things that actually end up being closer to the truth than what sounded like coming out of my pie hole initially. My dream scenario here, because we're talking kind of in platitudes here because for the Cardinals, because it's going to be a win-win. Trading back 11-23-1 from Minnesota, calling Jim Harbaugh and be like, listen, bro, we have 2 first-rounders and a third next year for you to move back out of 11. You want to move back anyways. You don't need Marvin Harrison Jr. You don't need Malik Neighbors, irrespective of their wide receiver room. And the Cardinals move back up to 5 and draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, something that's rooted in more rational thought is Atlanta at 8. That's a big one. And I've talked with Aaron Freeman a lot from Locked On Falcons about this. He thinks if Neighbors is there at 8, which he shouldn't be, that'll be a pick, but they're open for business. So you give them 11 and their second this year, 11 a second next year, whatever it is, move back up to draft Roma Doomsday or something like that. That's something I can get behind.
Stay in the know on the Cardinals draft strategy by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Cardinals on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, JJ McCarthy is not the quarterback you trade up for. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing. FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. It's also one of the best weeks on the calendar, Masters Week. FanDuel has so much for you to make money on. I have so many bets on the Masters right now. Surprise, surprise, Scotty Scheffler favored to win at Augusta. FanDuel has the odds on him winning at plus 450. What's crazy is there is no other player with odds better than 11-1. John Rahm and Rory McIlroy are 11-1. Xander Schauffele 14-1. I have that one. Hideki Matsuyama at 20-1. I have that one. That is your top 5. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Who will trade up in this year's NFL draft? More importantly, why will they trade up? As Locked On NFL hosts Chris Carter and James Rapien discussed, JJ McCarthy should not be the reason anyone trades up.
But I find JJ McCarthy, I'm not sure about his value. Like if I'm the Vikings, I'm sitting there at 11th overall, and let's say, Rome Odunze is available. And like, not that he will be. I think that Rome Odunze could go top 10 and not be available at 11. But like, let's say one of those prime guys are there, and you're thinking, you know what? These players they're going to do more than a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix or a JJ McCarthy because they're just much better at they're much surer picks at their positions. The gamble of doing that at quarterback early for trading up and not getting, one of the top 3 guys we're talking about being the reasons why this quarterback draft is being talked about so much. I wonder if that gamble is worth it if you're not getting one of those guys. Like, to me, the Vikings, they might need to be the team that trades up and offers something to Arizona to say, hey, give us that 4th overall pick, please. We'll do whatever we can, or see if one of the other teams in the top want to trade out of their situation.
I do wonder what JJ McCarthy's future would be if Brock Purdy didn't exist. If a team, and not just a team running the Shanahan tree offense, being operated like this, with all of the talent the San Francisco 49ers have. For whatever you think about Brock Purdy, he is a perfectly serviceable quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback. He's solid. He's fine. He's like between the 12th and 22nd best quarterback in the league in a vacuum. But you can win with him. He's athletic enough to make plays with his legs outside structure if the play breaks down. And then he can just point and shoot in an offense where if you can just point and shoot, you can be really, really good. JJ McCarthy's ceiling is like slightly more athletic Kirk Cousins. He can be the 8th best, the 10th best, the 12th best quarterback in the league. Maybe he's only 20, right? Maybe 21 as a rookie. That is something, I suppose, but there's way more risk in this than I think a lot of people are willing to say. These are not the kind of players you normally trade up. Multiple first-round picks. You trade up multiple first-round picks to get Josh Allen and all of the physical tools. You move up to get Patrick Mahomes and all of those physical tools. Or a guy like Deshaun Watson, who at the time, we're talking about a guy who goes to back-to-back national championships, is one of the elite quarterbacks in college football at an elite program where he was the program, where Dabo Swinney says he is Michael Jordan. That's not JJ McCarthy. I know Jim Harbaugh thinks JJ McCarthy is God's gift to steak and milk, but he's just a guy you can win with, not because you win because of. And that's a huge difference. But I hope the Vikings do it. And finally, it's been a rough year in Memphis. The Grizzlies have gone through quite the upheaval with all the Ja Morant news and injuries galore. Because of that, they reached an inglorious milestone last night with Brandon Clark in the starting lineup for the Grizzlies. Memphis, they started their 50th lineup this season, the most by a team since starters began being tracked in 1970-71. Clark will be the 23rd player to start a game for Memphis this year. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, which Eastern Conference team can overtake the Bucks for the 2 seed? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.